Hey guys, sorry about that, but it looked like we had a little bit of technical difficulty in the middle of the stream. So we're doing our fancy footwork behind the scenes to chop it up and get it redone for you so you don't miss out on any part of the discussion. We apologize and we will rectify these issues going forward. Thanks for sticking around. Hey guys, Winter Wolf here. Kingsley and I are about to focus all our firepower on that Superstar Destroyer. Just playing. We're going to talk Ahsoka because we've been looking forward to it. We're going to do it now.
We are good. We're good. We are up and running. Let's go ahead and change this background. Let's talk about what we came here to talk about, and that's Ahsoka.
Yeah, let's get into that because I think this show has been a long time coming for a lot of fans. I think there's a bunch of different camps and factions of people that are trying to get into this show for, whatever reason they're trying to get into. And I think that the day is here. Judgment is pending on the show. Let's just get the housekeeping stuff right out of the way. What did you think broadly of the first two episodes?
I think I really did enjoy this show. I liked it. I liked how they presented it. I think it can and should live up to the hype that they've built for this show, because it's been coming for a while now. And I think that it could actually be that Star Wars show that we've been looking for, away from Andor, like the opposite of what they try to do with all the other ones, where you have the standard Star Wars tropes, which Andor does not have. So, yeah, I think this could be that show.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna agree with you just on that point, just right from the get-go. I think this is the Star Wars show, hopefully, for the masses. Andor, I think, focused its firepower on like a subset of fans, people that were looking for something not Jedi in space, no space battle-y kind of thing, more like, the spy stuff that you and I talk about. Oh, yeah. I think this show is like their fourth attempt at just doing Star Wars. They had Kenobi, they had Boba Fett, we've had the Mandalorian, and they're all those shows wound up being fraudulent on one level or another, in my opinion.
Except for the first two seasons of Mando.
That's what I'm saying. Yep, you got me. Yep, early seasons of Mando, good, but it went way down the suck rabbit hole in season 3, and the numbers bear that out with limited streaming data we have, on the viewership of that show. This feels different. I'm not gonna carry its water yet, because I don't think Star Wars, Lucasfilms, any of the usual power players over there in any position to deserve my benefit of the doubt. I'll say that. I got a lot of good things to say about this show, what I've seen so far, but I'm not gonna do any cartwheels for these guys just yet, despite the enjoyment that I had last night watching the show. I think that's where I'm at. I'm cautiously optimistic, I think, is the way I want to go with that.
Yeah, and I think what they're going to do is they're going to play into a fan base that's been dying to see where the story goes, and that will be the Rebel fan base. If you guys haven't checked out any of the Star Wars animated series, you're completely missing out, because the animated series has been where it's at for a while now, with Clone Wars, with Rebels, with The Bad Batch. These are some great shows that they're putting out animated-wise, and this is a live-action continuation of Rebels.
Yeah, I'll back Kingsley up on that point 100%, because you're one of the folks that, going back a few years, knowing that I'm not big into the animation, actually talked me into picking up Rebels as kind of, as a later in its run kind of deal. And I watched all 4 series on a rip, all 4 seasons in a rip, and I really enjoyed it. I thought there was some really cool stuff there. And I don't want to point out any extra technical difficulties, but is Discord down again, or did we cut that on purpose?
I cut that on purpose.
Okay, no worries. I'm going to kill it myself. Anyway, so I watched Rebels late. There was a lot of good stuff there. It went back to a lot of traditional Jedi Padawan kind of stuff. They got into the more mystical aspects of the Force as it relates to nature. There was all kinds of interesting stuff. Thrawn was pretty good on the show. The other Imperial intelligence guy that ends up defecting to the Rebel cause later in the show's run, he was pretty good as a character, so I like that. So there's a lot of good takeaways, and I think a lot of people are hoping Ahsoka picks up all of those positive threads and absolutely just bolts for the finish line live action. So I hope that's the experience we get out of it. So how do you want to do this show tonight, my friend? I mean, I got a pros and cons list, a wish list, questions I wanted to ask. Do you want to do a show breakdown like we usually do and get at some of the plot points? Because I think it's all pretty straightforward, and I don't think that this isn't Game of Thrones or Andor. You know what I mean? I don't think there's a lot of intrigue to split here. So maybe just we talk show stuff
We talk show
without breaking
stuff.
it all the way down.
And we can, I mean, we can still do a little breakdown. We probably don't have to go scene by scene. Like you said, it is pretty straightforward. They were good timed episodes. Like the first one was about an hour, where the second one was about half an hour, minus credits. So it was good. So before we get into anything, we should talk about the creators of this show, which is David Filoni. That's how you say it?
Yep. Filoni, you got it.
David Filoni is going to be he's the showrunner for this, as well as he wrote it. I was there, and when I was doing my research, I saw that George Lucas had a writing credit, and that's because he's the creator of Star Wars, and therefore he still gets a writer's credit on this. But he's the primary writer of all the episodes, but he's only going to be directing 2 of them, and he only directed 1 from last night. The first one. Now, if you don't know where David Filoni's from, David Filoni is tied into Star Wars. He's part of Mando. He was part of the Bad Batch. He was part of Rebels. He's been pretty much his whole career has been Star Wars. So he's definitely knows the
creator of the Ahsoka character.
Right? Oh yeah. So this is his
baby.
This is his baby. Also, the cinematographer for this is Eric Steelberg. He's best known for Ghostbusters Afterlife, the Hawkeye series, and a movie with The Rock called Baywatch.
I never heard of that one.
But that's, and of course we know it stars Rosario Dawson as the title character Ahsoka. So I think that's the enough with the meta part of it. I think let's get into the show, because I think the show actually delivered, especially the first 2 episodes, on what it's trying to do.
Before we jump into the show, let's do a little bit of shameless self-promotion, guys. We're going to be talking Ahsoka for a while, and we invite you to join us in the conversation in chat. I know I have questions for King Z because he's a much better payer attention of detail than I am. So I got a couple to throw at you. If we have some lore experts out there that are tuning in and want to correct us on stuff, I'm not going to take it personal. This is all new to me too. And like I said, I jumped in on Rebels late. I watched some of the Ahsoka specific episodes of Clone Wars on friends' recommendations, but I'm not like a third Dan black belt in anything Filoni Wars. So yeah, please drop us knowledge as we go. Hit a like if you want to hear us talk more about this stuff. Maybe subscribe later if you feel we earned it. Always cool. But dude, I got to put you right on the spot for a question even before we get in the episode, just so we can clarify. And I know you've done this for me in the past, but I think it's worth pointing out to some folks here. And guys, spoiler alert, as always, with us covering the show. If you haven't watched Ahsoka, break out, check it, come back. We'll still be here. Plot this show on the official Star Wars timeline for me. My understanding, and you can correct me, is Rebels happens between episodes 3 and 4 in the main movie timeline, between Revenge of the Sith, and actually between Sith and Rogue One even. So that's where it starts, Rebels.
Yeah.
Ahsoka picks up after Return of the Jedi and before Force Awakens, closer to the end of Return of the Jedi.
And you could put this at, it's going at approximately parallel with Mando Season 3 timeline-wise.
Okay, so definitely after Return of the Jedi, because the Emperor's gone, the Empire, as they know it, has fallen. There's stormtroopers and Imperial elements scattered all over the place, but they're beaten. The New Republic is it.
Yeah, the New Republic is in charge. There's Empire remnants, but this is way before the First Order comes into existence.
Right. Yeah, because they're not sniffing anything about Snoke. There's no talk of the Knights of Ren, Emo Ren, any of that stuff. All the stormtroopers still have their traditional. We didn't see any stormtroopers, but we saw helmets in the background in Sabine's hideout. You know what I mean? So it's all their stuff. All the old stuff is still there.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say this is still fresh Republic, still trying to get their feet as the new governing body of the galaxy.
Just wanted to clarify that, because I think it's important to keep this plotted on that kind of mental timeline so we can see how it does tie into, unfortunately, the sequel trilogy. And I'll get that out of the way right quick. Anybody that hopes this is going to retcon the sequel trilogy out of existence, you're dreaming, guys. Let it go. The sequel trilogy is awful, but that doesn't mean this has to suck in support of it being awful. So we're going to just take this as its own show. But having said all that, King Z,
yes,
start me off. This show kicks off. I thought the pacing was good right through the opening minutes, because we get kind of a reverse of Star Wars Episode 4, New Hope, we get the bad guys initiating the story, which I thought was a very, very interesting creative decision. Let's talk about that first section because, it was a cool section.
Yep. So we all know who was captured because she was captured in Mando season 2. She was the one who was fighting with the medals. Was it Bestine? Whatever the Mandalorian medal is.
Beskar.
The Beskar spear against Ahsoka,
Yep.
and she takes her.
Yep.
So this is her transport to trial. Apparently, the New Republic cannot transport anyone to trial because Moff Gideon also at states as well. So
terrible at prisoner security.
Yeah,
terrible.
Doesn't even matter how big the ship is. This was a much bigger ship.
The capital ship on a cruiser, at least.
Yeah,
it's at least a cruiser.
So you have 2 Jedi or supposed Jedi coming into the ship, kind of like Episode 1 at the very beginning of everything.
Phantom Menace, yeah.
Yeah, a little Phantom Menace callback here. And then they come in, and the captain is very suspicious, and he's thinking he's going to trap these wannabe Imperial leftovers. I'm going to find out they are Force-wielding non-Jedi, but non-Sith as well. And later in the episode, you find out that he's a former Jedi who left the Order. But yeah, they come in, pretty much take down the whole ship, just the 2 of them, showing once again the impotence of this New Republic, which they've highlighted out throughout both Mandalorian and this one, is just like how weak the New Republic is. And this is one of my points for the whole thing, is like they were under the Imperial thumb for so long. It's like they overcorrected to be not overbearing New Republic type thing, and it's just making them not able to handle, kind of like America when it first won its independence from England. We couldn't even stop a border dispute between 2 of the colonies because of how weak the Articles of Confederation actually were. And that's what caused for us to make the Constitution and a stronger federal government as well. So you can see that displayed in this series with this. But they free her, they get her off, and they're like, well, we gotta find the map to find Thrawn. Yep. And this is where it goes
MacGuffin 1. Yep. Insert MacGuffin 1.
Which is just a callback to pretty much the beginning of Force Awakens as well, which is recycling that story.
Dude, I gotta be honest with you, it did drive up a red flag for me when I was like, wait a minute, this is a map. Why are they looking for a map? Well, why is this just a flip of the bad guys and the good guys having a map MacGuffin to find the guy they want? So I was a little nervous at that point, but that went away. Real quick before we move on in the show, did you happen to notice who the captain of the New Republic ship was?
Actually, no, I didn't.
You're going to be disappointed then. That was Drake from Aliens, Vasquez's partner on the smart gun. Yep. Or Boggs from The Shawshank Redemption, if you're a Stephen King fan, movie adaptation fan. So that was Drake all grown up and not having acid sprayed in his face and getting left behind, even though he might not have been dead yet. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, dude, first impression of that scene, dude, I was digging it because I dug the vibe. But whenever a shuttle ramp goes down and it hisses the steam out, it's a bad guy. The good guys never enter through the steamy ramp drop, ever. It's just not a thing. It's a motif of villainy. That's how it's done.
I think it's a design flaw. I mean, why would you want a hot steam coming out of the people coming out anyways?
Unless it's some kind of disinfectant quarantine thing, but that you wouldn't do that outside to open shit. Whatever. It just looks cool. They knew it looked cool in 1970, whatever, when they did it. So they're running with it now. It's just part of the lore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just how that is. So it looked cool. We're gonna run with it. I love them walking side by side, hoods up. You know it's going to be a tense situation, but you're just like, okay, how long until you guys murk the entire security detail and get whatever you want done?
Okay, it did not take long.
11 seconds. It did not take long. They talked a little smack back and forth, and then that shit was just over. They did wreck them pretty good.
He did have a great line in that too. He's like, you had one thing right, Captain.
Yeah.
We are no Jedi.
Right. Yep. Slapping. Pretty good. I like that. That's Balin's skull is the character's name,
Mm-hmm.
because they said it like one. They said his first name twice and like the last name once
Yeah.
through the entire show. And I only caught it because I keep the subtitles on just whenever I know there's going to be funky names, so I'll be able to remember them.
Mm.
And they only mentioned his apprentice's name once. It's Shin. If anybody
Shin.
else in the chat knew that, I'd love you to give me a 1 in the chat if you knew the name, because I've been talking to people about this show all day and nobody knew that chick's name. They're like the blonde chick with the freaky eyes. I'm like, yeah, no, it's Shin. That's it. Yeah, so pretty good setup. And see, this is what kind of kills me about this show. We go from this scene, right? Or this is what kills me about criticism of this show, I mean to say. We go from this scene, which is really tense and fast moving. It gets to the point, it establishes the villains and their objective, or at least their initial objective. And in the next scene, we get Ahsoka doing Ahsoka stuff, working on her objective, which runs parallel to the bad guys.
Yep.
She's at an ancient temple, working through a set of puzzles, and she's exploring and doing cool Ahsoka shit. Kind of, it's slow-ish, but it's just because she's not running for her life, but she's doing things. She's active, we call that.
Mm-hmm.
She solves a couple of puzzles, retrieves a map from what she thinks is a map, from like a temple artifacty kind of pillar kind of thing. She gets jumped by a detail of droids, assassin droids that are pretty badass. She kind of plays them for suckers though, because she's Ahsoka and it was cool choreography and everything. And the scene ends with a bang, which is kind of hilarious because she defeats them all roundly, and then they activate a self-destruct that looks like some kind of tactical nuclear weapon times the 4 of them, and basically blow the planet up or some shit. I don't know. If I had 4 of these droids, I'd have probably just beamed one. Oh, they don't have that. I'd have probably just drop shipped one to Alderaan, Dantooine, Tatooine, and one other place, Coruscant, and just ended this bullshit.
Yeah.
Because it seems like they pack in some punch.
Yeah,
and a self-destruct.
I was thinking about that too. I was like, that's such a big explosion for such a small device inside of them.
Across the countryside, rolled. And I'm like, and she outran it because she jumped on the back of her own droid piloted ship. I do like her droid, by the way. I think he's funny.
Yeah.
I think that character is working well, and I think there's some sarcasm there and snark, but there's also the poignant stuff that comes later when we get into the Sabine stuff. So I think they're striking a pretty good balance there. What happened after that? We get the Ahsoka thing. She goes back. We see Hera. Is that next? It's all kind of it's all mixed up in my head. I don't know if you got a timeline if you want to work me through it. That's why I was saying maybe we don't have to stick scene to scene.
Yeah. I think from there she goes forward to Hera. It stays on Ahsoka for a while because we don't see the bad guys again for a little bit.
Right, because the droid recommends that no, the droid doesn't recommend she find Sabine. That's Hera's suggestion.
Yeah, that's Hera's suggestion.
Yeah. All right, let me just break down. We'll do it this way then, since really I don't have a scene list in front of me anyway. So the crux of episode 1 really is this setup: is both factions, the Ahsoka faction, the New Republic, versus the governor. I don't remember what her name was from the Mandalorian. Each trying to find the map because Ezra and Thrawn are inextricably connected. Based on their fate from Rebels. For those of you guys that didn't watch, spoiler alert here, at the end of Rebels, Ezra kind of sacrifices himself to disable Thrawn's capital ship and basically rescue the fledgling rebellion at that point, because that's years before Rogue One. So it's basically just like 30 people that are on Lothal, Ezra's homeworld at that point. There's not a lot of people. I don't even think Mon Mothma was part of, she was on that show, I think. But anyway, they each want this map because each side is trying to find their guy. The Imperials want Thrawn back, and Ahsoka wants Ezra back, but also mostly to prevent a war from breaking out. She decides she's got to go grab Sabine Wren from Rebels, who was Ezra's best friend, found family, sister, semi-love interest before the sister bond took over on the show. He's a little teenager, had a little crush on her and whatnot. But based on Sabine's character from Rebels, she was always the artist. She was kind of their engineer. She was the tech savvy one that could see outside the normal patterns of how folks thinking. It was pretty good with just thinking puzzles outside the box. So Ahsoka uses her to kind of unlock what she assumes is a star map that has coordinates for whatever reason. I don't know who would have made that map, and that was kind of on my question list. That she could crack the code that they could find Ezra, find Thrawn, kill him, capture him, but prevent another war. And that's basically the entire setup for the show is that key plot point, because they don't really go past anything beyond that through the first 2 episodes that we saw.
No, it was a standard 2-episode setup with a little little things they have to accomplish. Like you get introduced to Sabine and see that she's against rules, and
Yep.
like she's on her own. And they said, you have to be careful with her because she's Mandalorian blood, which you
Yep.
see that later in episode 2. And then you find out, they have their big callback to Rebels as well, with the mural painted for them
Yeah,
for
dude, that
saving
was
it.
so good. That was so good. I was so happy to see that. You have no idea. I was like, at least it has Kanan in it, and that's all. That's on my wish list. Like for just talking about the show. Like one of the things I enjoyed about this so far is Ahsoka and Sabine both have treated Ezra with like the appropriate like reverence. The law, like they miss him. They long for him to be back and part of the group, part of the family, and nobody blamed him for doing anything stupid or it's his fault. It was just nice to see that, and I hope they extend that to Kanan as well, Ezra's mentor, his master, because Kanan was the fucking glue that held that Rebels show together. Him being on his own arc of being like the reluctant teacher and growing and becoming a father figure to Ezra when he was younger, and then as like a partner, soldier side by side later. I hope they at least show him the nod, you know what I mean? But the mural was good. It was just nice to see the mural. It was
Yeah.
nice for her to be Sabine's living in Ezra's old place, the communications tower, at the edge of town, down the end of the highway that she was taking on the speeder bike. I thought that entire set looked great. They had gear set up on the tables. I swear, dude, they frame by frame that out of Rebels was where some of the artwork that she painted on the walls was in places that he had his stuff, but then some of the old arrangements were there, like the computer equipment and things like that. I loved it. I love that set.
And then the holographic message with the
Yeah.
callback to him and everything like
Mhm.
that. Showing
I think that was
she
right
is.
off the show. I think that was the holotape that she had at the conclusion of Rebels, is that he left that for her, that he had made it for her before they went off on that last adventure. I thought that entire bit was good. A lot of this episode too, they play kicking back and forth the unseen history between Ahsoka and Sabine.
Yeah.
And I think they did this very cleverly. I think you'll appreciate this. They did that thing you and I talk about where they arrive in the middle of a scene or an idea as late as possible.
Yeah.
They get into it, and we already know that they have a history that didn't end well, without having to spend 15 minutes or showing us a flashback of it not ending well. And I appreciate that, because we're talking how many years have passed between Rebels and now? Like 10, something, at least 10, like a lot.
Yeah. A lot's
So
happened in
that
that small time.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So, they had their Padawan master relationship, because Sabine ends Rebels with being semi-force sensitive, which was unusual, obviously, because she's a Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got to see them take that arrangement in a way that maybe people didn't expect, because on Rebels, you never got to see that. The training, however far she made it, we didn't get to see any of that. So they made a creative decision to have it be that it just didn't work out. Like, we tried this thing. I'm too stubborn. She's too stubborn. We're gone. We're done. She walked out on me.
I mean, she had that great self-realization point. She's like, I walked away from Anakin. I walked away from Sabine. Maybe it's me type thing.
Yep. Dude, which I thought was a banger, dude, because one of the things we complain about all the time is how Mary Sue characters can't have that, because you just can't. They need to be flawless. And this character right here, because of how she's developed over time, at least they're writing her with the due respect that she can have that kind of introspection. I thought that was a massive, massive win for the writing right then and there.
Oh yeah, this is the writing in this is, you can tell, is a little different than it was season 3 Mando.
Yeah.
From Book of Boba Fett, from the Kenobi. Like, they're actually caring about what they did before, and then how it's going to expand upon that, instead of destroying what they've done before by trying to redo it, or throw in little bits and pieces where it's like, that makes no sense because they already did this here. So it looks like they are taking their time and care with this.
Yeah, I'll springboard just off my own little bit about Ahsoka right there. We just said the Sabine character is a logical, natural extension of where we saw her on Rebels. She got put through her paces, and she's a soldier.
Yep.
Through and through. She's a guerrilla soldier with talent, with ability. She's intelligent. And dude, and we said this before, nobody hates Sabine as a character. So critics out there of, there's a certain population of Star Wars fans that can't tolerate strong female characters will piss off. This one has 3 from the jump that we've liked for a decade. Okay, so let's put that shit away right now because people love Sabine.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, like, how Kathleen Kennedy said that the Force is female. Well, this show is getting it right, and it's not forcing it because they're built, they're written well, they're strong female characters. They're not characters that were flipped to just be inclusive. They wrote good characters that empower females, and that is amazing. I mean, they should get their hats off for that.
No, that's what I mean. Our policy on Winter Wolf's Den is always to call out good stuff when we see it and take down the bad stuff when it deserves to be done. If this show falls off a cliff in episode 3 because all of a sudden they introduce another character, like even if it's a brand new male character and he's just there to be the butt of a joke, fine, the show fell off. If they rewrite Sabine Wren to be like some narcissistic tool bag that all of a sudden hates the relationships that she had with Zeb and Kanan and Ezra, then fine, we'll call that out. But we're not there. I don't think we're getting there. I think this show is a logical extension of Rebels from what I've seen, because so far I've seen Ahsoka act like Ahsoka through 2 episodes. I've seen Sabine being rebellious and anti kind of responsibility. She bailed on the ceremony, like you said. I love that they brought, this is another aside, I love that they brought back the voice actors to be their live action selves for several of these characters, including Governor Azadi, who is Clancy Brown. Right? They brought him back to be that. The voice actors for Hera, and Sabine were also cast as their live action selves. I just think that's a great idea because you can tell, because I see how Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who does Hera, all the scenes she was in on the holograms, and then when she was there in person, Hera always had that thing where like she'd have her hands folded behind her and like lean in. The body language is there. And I'm like, dude, that's deep cut stuff. That's the stuff that when we were enjoying early episodes of The Last of Us, where we were seeing that shot for shot pulled out of the game's FMV, this is the stuff that we credit them for getting right. So I'm going to give it all to Ahsoka right now for them getting at least the early stuff right. These feel like the characters from Rebels. This is what they were supposed to be. So far, I think we're off to a great start with that stuff. I want to see more of what they've all been up to. I want to hear more and watch them develop Ahsoka and her relationship with Sabine. And we see by the end of episode 2, that's kind of the big conclusion there. Sabine's ready to re-engage. And she's willing to ask for help and to offer herself to be helpful, And I think that's the driving force behind the better parts of Star Wars. Always has been the relationships between the friends or the family.
Yeah. And then we get back to the map, and this is the part of the map I did like, that it wasn't in the galaxy that they're in. When Sabine finally figures out how to crack it by looking at the diagrams and like using her knowledge on how to crack it, and she cracks it open and sees where it's going. It's like a whole other galaxy, which makes sense of why Thrawn wasn't there. Like if he left by accident or by purpose to another galaxy, it makes a perfect sense of why he's gone and why his fleet, which is still an Imperial fleet, is gone as well, and why someone would want to. I mean, Ahsoka and her crew has their own objective. They want Ezra back, and they want to make Thrawn pay. But the good part is that for the bad guys, who also have the same storyline, they're looking for their fleet and power, which they talk about in episode 2. It's like power that you can never even imagine, because they're bringing in a third faction completely in this. If you didn't catch that, we're not talking Jedi and Sith. We're talking they have this new witch faction that they're built, which is probably from that other galaxy, which possibly could have brought the Force to this galaxy.
The witch stuff is actually a take from old Star Wars. That's like Darth Maul's origins, like the Witches of Dathomir. So that's in galaxy as we know it. It's just old and hasn't had a play in the live action yet besides Darth Maul. Okay. It just goes that far back. But I wasn't even thinking, when you said faction, I wasn't even thinking that. I was thinking, are these guys having the balls to pull in some Yuzon Vong stuff from the EU, which as we know doesn't exist? Like, are we going to claim, the force resistant antagonists from those books that don't exist? That's kind of where my mind went when she said that, when she was talking about bringing in allies and things like that, and finding Thrawn to be a figurehead. That way they could rally remaining Imperial forces, kind of stuff. So I guess that'll be a wait and see, because that'll be like something we really have to hope they deliver on, as like a promise of something interesting. Because you're right, I think the Jedi and Sith thing, like the angle's been done to death.
Yeah.
So if they add a third antagonist, that's why all the stuff with the was it the Black Dawn? With that was part of that the Nintendo 64 game, like the underworld stuff that the Hutts are involved in is a power faction. There are sections of space that they run at the Imperial's expense. You know what I mean? So who knows? And because she's obviously got criminal ties, I'm going to call her the governess until somebody tells me her name, because I don't know her name. But the map scene was dope, and this is at the next part of that's coming up high on my list of things that I like. The resolution to that scene is Balin's apprentice shows up with her droids to rip it off, and they have their little tussle. They have her and Sabine have their tussle, and she has the issue with the droids. She has to take a couple down, but they did two smart things in this scene, just on a character level that I like, on a character action level. Sabine, after she beats the one droid and realizes the other one took off with the map, calls for fucking backup before she runs outside. And I thought that was like, okay, that's what she should do. Like, why would she jump her ass down that tower and pursue an unknown threat into the darkness and get her ass, killed by 8 other people? I thought that was good. But I also like the droid. The droid, after it steals the map, goes back into the room and like blasts all her gear and smashes the copies.
Yeah.
Now, maybe I'm just impressed with low-hanging, which should be considered easy fruit these days. But I feel like other shows just overlook that kind of stuff and jump right into the next chase, right into the next shootout, right into the next saber duel. And all this took was 2 seconds. It just took 2 seconds to make it look intelligent and normal. I mean, finally, guys, thank you.
And then they found out that the droid might have seen something or know where they were from. And then that's when Ahsoka sets her own trap by showing up and trying to investigate. And I like the part where she can actually hear the lightsaber duel. She can hear the blaster shots as she's walking through and like examining everything. It was a really cool scene with the little hint of sound in the background. Faint,
echoing
but
the Force.
That was super cool. It was a nice touch. And then you had the assassin droid try to drop down, thinking Sabine might be coming back. And just totally decapitates him.
And that comes up later. That's an episode 2 bit that happens. So that's how they figure out how to recover, because they do in episode 1 they do lose the map. Sabine duels with Shin. She looks a little rusty. There was some good choreography there, but I think she was purposely not supposed to be as skilled as a an apprentice well on her way. So the apprentice gets the better of her. And this is my big nitpick here, right? I don't care if Sabine has Mandalorian blood. I'm sick and tired of lightsaber wounds to the gut being some shit you can just walk off the next day. That shit's got to stop. if Qui-Gon Jinn's got to die from a lightsaber thrust to the gut, everybody else needs to die to that wound. And this is like the 3rd effing person that survived this. Reva got stabbed in the gut twice in Fraud Kenobi. Like, Sabine gets stabbed through the gut, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, okay, this would be an unexpected direction if Ahsoka went to her for help and then she's laid up, or God forbid she dies. Like, talk about a shock. That would have been a Game of Thrones level shock.
Oh yeah,
they killed Sabine.
I was actually thinking that too. I'm like, well, that's a different take, but I can go with it.
No. But now back to tank. Med droid. Apparently we're walking that shit off. And what chaps my ass about it is there's going to be just a legion of people out there that are going to say, like, not that you said it specifically to this effect, but she got Mandalorian blood, so she's tough, so she could walk that shit off. Dude, I'm sure the Jedi cut down millions of Mandalorian in that war, and the motherfuckers were not walking off lightsaber wounds to the gut. That's how they won. You know what I mean?
It's a classic trope with guns too. Like, you see like one shot and they're gone, but the good guy gets shot and he's there and he's like he's still fighting on. He
could run.
It's the whole white hat, black hat type
I know
thing. So
but in Star Wars, dude, the lightsaber used to be this exotic, like dignified, elegant weapon for a more a civilized age kind of thing. It was borderline magic, right? And I just hate to see it cheap and like, oh, dude, if I had just stabbed this guy, same shit. He would have survived the gut wound. Dude, if I stabbed you with a typical like a bayonet affixment, you're probably gonna die of a shot to the gut. The lightsaber should have effed your world up. And she's like, no, I'm cool. Armor up, going out, doing the thing like 2 seconds later. It was basically like a day and a half later because Ahsoka made her get her bed rest for a day. For a day.
Well, they did not.
It was wild.
They did not close because they don't know how long the trip was. Because remember, hyperspace isn't instant. Is not instant.
And it's magic. In this world, it's magic. 100%.
So,
dude, 100%.
We don't know the time lapse. She could have been in there for a week or a couple weeks before. But she was up and moving around day one. Afterwards, after they treated, but she didn't actually leave for a while, so we don't actually know the time that's between certain things.
To be fair, I'd like to think it's at least accelerated because they're kind of under a crunch wanting to recover the map. So I'm guessing it wasn't a month. I'm guessing it wasn't even a week. Maybe a day or two, maybe 3, something like that. Because Ahsoka would, want to be on like the trail as quick as she could go.
Yeah, like the Ahsoka part. Because remember, she left like the next day for hers, but her trip out there could have been a day or so. Because remember, in episode 4, when they're going to Alderaan. They didn't instantly get to Alderaan. They jumped to hyperspace. No. They had some time in hyperspace.
And they were cruise control.
Yeah.
Right, they were on cruise control for a hot minute. Good point.
We don't know that time of how long they were in hyperspace to get to this new planet where the shipyard was. So during that time, Sabine was in the hospital getting her treatments as well as self-reflecting.
Yep, and let's talk about that self-reflection for a minute because we're just kind of doing both episodes kind of as a mashup here just to get it all done and go over things. I like they had a couple of scenes that kind of ran parallel where Ahsoka's talking to Hera about the relationship that she had with Sabine as her master back in the day. And then running parallel to that, when Sabine's recovering in the hospital, she's having the very same chat with the droid, with Hu Yang, I think is his name. Which I thought was a cool droid design with the pointy ears. Ahsoka's droid with the pointy ears.
Yeah,
it's like her co-pilot.
Hu Yang.
I think.
By the way, the Baroness, her name is Morgan Elizabeth.
Yes, Baroness was the title.
Yeah,
that's right.
Baroness.
They said Morgan a couple times. Yes, I remember Morgan now because it's a subtitle. So Sabine's having the same chat with Hu Yang about, well, maybe you're the one that needed to ask. You never asked to come back. It's not that Ahsoka didn't want you back. You never asked. And at the same time, Hera's basically saying, she'd probably help you if you just asked her to come along. And they're both working through the disaster of whatever bond they had as, master and student.
And it goes with the whole thing. It's like some people just expect the other person to act first when you could say something and have it move forward.
Right.
That's the thing. It's going with the thing like, we had this thing in the Army. It was like we were talking about like it's a job that anyone could do, but someone didn't do. It was all the one was like the one thing that it, but all it takes is one, and it was like sometimes you have to be the one to move the ball forward. You have to forward, right? You don't wait for other people because that other person might be waiting for you, and then you're just not going to move forward.
And then you're just stuck, right? But what I appreciate the most out of both of those segments, and I say this a lot too in my criticisms of all things new Star Trek, when at least these guys in this show are talking about those old bonds and the failures that they've experienced, I didn't get a whole lot of bitching, whining, complaining, loud yelling, everybody acting like they're 16 and in high school. Yes, these are people that have flaws and problems and personality issues. But even when Ahsoka and Sabine sat down, there was some quips back and forth, but it didn't devolve into like an episode of some WB channel, like high school drama. And just thank God for that. I'm so sick and tired of grown-ups acting like a-holes with the expectation that the audience just considers that the finer point of the drama. It's not, because that's not how all conflict works in real life. It's
Yeah.
like the lowest common denominator of easy conflict to write. Oh, Kingsley and Winterwolf had a disagreement about Batman. Okay, well, obviously the only thing we can do is act passive aggressive for 3 weeks, and then yell at each other finally in some culminating scene. That's of course the only way the conflict could ever be framed is in that way. Nope, sorry, writing team. That's just not how it works. There's degrees of subtlety and nuance to the conflict where people take their passive aggressive shots, but then there is a common goal that they have to move towards, and everybody has to decide what their level of buy-in is at that point. They both want Ezra back. Ahsoka wants Ezra, but also wants to prevent the larger story goal for the good guys. You know what I mean? She's out for Thrawn not being allowed to take over for the Emperor.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But they need each other to do that shit. And dude, I loved because when we talk about raising stakes, I love that. I think it was the droid. Somebody pointed out to Ahsoka that it'll be difficult for her to deal with the two Sith or not Sith or whatever they are by herself. And that's when they made I think it was the droid. I think Hu Yang made the recommendation. You really need to get her because then maybe it wouldn't be such a clusterfuck. It'd at least be 2-on-2. Right?
Yeah.
But then they raised the stakes because in the end of episode 2, Shin is there. Baylan comes to pick them up, but there's like a Sith apprentice, a Sith Inquisitor with them also.
Yeah.
With the dual side of the lightsaber. I'm like, okay, so there's 3 of these motherfuckers? Okay.
Yeah.
Like, cool.
It reminds me of from the game, what was that? The Jedi Fallen, the one with the red-headed kid.
Fallen Order.
Fallen Order.
Yeah, that was Cal.
Yeah, it reminds me of the first main boss of that.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was like and the design I thought was great with like the medieval helmet that like closed at like the point kind of thing. I thought it was very cool. But I'm like, just the takeaway from it though, I was like, oh shit, now there's 3 saber wielding a-holes on this show. Ahsoka definitely needs backup. And then I kind of went down the rabbit hole and I'm like, dude, because I haven't finished Fallen Order or Jedi Survivor, so I don't know. And please nobody spoil that in the chat. Dude, is this a mechanism to bring Cal Kestis from Jedi Fallen Order into the show as an older player? Because I think this would predate episode 4. I think the Fallen Order is right at the fall of the Jedi. So I mean, would they bring in an older Cal Kestis to be the third Force wielder for the good guys? That could be cool.
That's one of my things was that he has been turned. Uh-oh.
Say again.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I just didn't. I didn't pick up enough of what you said to understand.
I think that's going to be one of the major twists in the whole show. I thought we'll talk about this at the end, but I think it's going to be Ezra's going to be turned. He's going to be like Thrawn's emperor.
No. Cannot be. Unacceptable. Sacrilege, even borderline. That would be cool. If they did that, they would make good on a twist that I wanted in the crappy sequel trilogy where maybe Dark Ray was a thing, threw us all for a loop, and then we actually get to see a Finn situation. Like, no, there wasn't, don't worry, there's another, you know what I mean? Like, that would have been cool in the sequel trilogy. But no, if they find Ezra and he's evil, cool. I hope if it comes down to Dark Ezra versus Sabine, and then he has to turn at the very last second again and defeat Thrawn to save Sabine, that could be a cool twist on that, I guess. Like very Return of the Jedi, Vader turning on the Emperor kind of thing. That could work. I wouldn't hate that. So dude, twists aside, I think that I'm interested enough to see what each of these characters does to resolve the broken relationship going forward. And I think that's pretty much all we can say about the two of them right now. We've seen Ahsoka at least be willing to admit that she may have been wrong, maybe that she's got some issues. She's got some own abandonment issues that she brings to the table. And Sabine's got her personality, rough around the edges thing, and maybe she wasn't the easiest to manage kind of stuff. Let's talk bad guys, because they haven't given us a lot to go on yet. I kind of dig that, because I would like that mystery to slowly unfold. I didn't need an exposition character bio dumped up front. But we know we have Baylan Skoll and Shin and the Baroness. The Baroness being a Thrawn political ally. She probably facilitated, a lot of the Imperial's weaponry and navy, as we saw in her shipyards and from episode 2. But the two not Jedi, but also not Sith characters are interesting because they're mercenaries. The Baroness hired them.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I think if you had that type of talent and you had those type of weapons, I think you'd go for a very high price.
Yeah. So they're probably eagerly cashing those. Well, I guess it's not New Republic credits. They're probably not being paid in. But yeah, no, you're probably coming at that high price. What do you make of Balin's skull?
I don't know a lot about him that I know so far, but I think he's someone who was burned.
So what do you think? What are your impressions of the character? Yeah.
I'm liking him. He's not overspoken. He's not that that twirling mustache bad guy. I think that he was hurt or betrayed or believed he was betrayed by the Jedi. So now he's doing his own thing, and he realized that he needed to go into hiding during the Empires. They were chopping down Force wielders. But he found a niche for himself. He found someone who would follow him, and now he's making money. So I think he's just using what he was taught on how, and he's using it to his own advantage.
Yeah, I'm digging him as a character too. I like the look. I think the black attire with it's a very nondescript kind of armor. It doesn't have a lot of flash or panache to it. I kind of like that. I like his mannerism as well. The way you were just saying. In particular, there's that scene where they're on, I think the name of the planet was Cetos, where the bad guys use the star map.
Yeah.
And the Baroness basically says, "Oh, if Ahsoka Tano is following, you have to kill her. Like she can't interfere with this plan." And he just gets this real introspective look, and he's like, "Yeah, I might have to. That'd be a shame." And like he genuinely seems to mean it. Like it would be a shame if I have to destroy her because she is such a rare and unique talent. I was thinking that as a vibe from like a villain. You know what I mean? Like if that's who he's going to be for the show, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
I thought that was a good way to frame him as not a brute as a muscle. Yeah.
Well, you could tell he's still into like the Jedi feeling because he has a Padawan. She has the Padawan braid in her hair.
I saw that.
So
I saw that. Yep.
So he's still like he wanted to be the Jedi, but he's like he knows he's a merc now, and he knows the Jedi are pretty much gone. And
so, are they gray Jedi by definition? Because or not because they're mercenaries, like because they murdered the captain of the Imperial cruiser. They're not good guys.
Yeah,
as they stand now, they're not.
Right? And by definition, the Jedi were the of law and order. They were the
right.
Judge, jury, executioner
of the old Republic.
Yep. I think that they are just force. At this point, they'd be considered almost like a hedge witch in like wizard terms.
Okay.
They're like force wielders who were trained. Like they know enough to.
They're Ronin, or maybe Ronin.
Yeah.
Something like that, like a concept like that. No master, but have the skills.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So that's him. What do you think of Shin? Because I think that we know there's even less we can know of her, other than she's got some game. I mean, she has some force skills. She's got some saber skills. She follows orders.
She seems powerful in the force. She has saber skills. Like you saw the fight with Sabine. Even though she probably should have completely overpowered Sabine being trained, but it might show that she's still early in her training as well.
Right, we just don't know where they are, where she is on that path exactly.
But when you saw her move on the battle cruiser, though, she was moving, she was fast, quick with the force, And
she was very varied with the attacks too. As I was saying earlier, the choreography I thought was pretty solid, just in terms of how they're moving around. And we get that badass scene where Balin's strolling the hallway like Vader at the end of Rogue One, just like clink. Clink, deflecting shit, force grabbed somebody, smashed him in the ceiling, did all kinds of gangster shit. He force grabbed somebody into a saber thrust, which was pretty badass. You know, the captain of the Imperial cruiser, of the New Republic cruiser. So they each have their game. I like that we're already 2 episodes in, right? But we see that their motivations might not be perfectly in line, even though he's adhering to the mercenary code is, we're getting paid, we do the job. And she's kind of doing the whole Padawan to master thing, like she's loyal and following orders. But he's explaining to her that when Thrawn comes back, we can attain power like, you can't dream. I'm thinking, if they're successful and we get a Thrawn comeback, and he's going to be on the show, they cast an actor, like he will be a part of the show.
Yeah, they've shown shots of what he looks like.
Right. Right. They hired the voice actor. Again, they
Mhm.
did another great casting decision. That he'll screw over the Baroness and somehow either try to kill Thrawn for himself and monkey wrench that whole thing and take over. Who knows? And then the apprentice is starting to ask questions like, what does this mean for us if he comes back? And she's acting hesitant in other places where she may be reconsidering her bond with her teacher. So I think there's enough there to like really drive interesting character plots through this show that have nothing to do with Ezra Thrawn, directly. So I think that's good stuff. And I think that's a level, again, of complexity. Just didn't get that in Kenobi and Obi-Wan and Mando season 3 at all. So I was happy to see that kind of stuff. What do you think? What do you think about the apprentice's motivations?
Yeah, I think you hit that one on the head. It's she's probably used to just being told what to do. Like she was probably on the outs while they were hunting Jedi. He could tell that she had powers, or she might be a former youngling that he saved from Order 66 and took her as his and went into hiding. And like she's gonna follow him wherever he goes because she has a like a father-daughter type feel in this their relationship. But now she's starting to ask questions as she's coming of age.
That's what Right. See, that's what I mean. And I feel like all of that, to me, though, and you too, because I know the things that you're into, that you read, that you watch, that you write, those used to just be foundational blocks of the story we told, that these relationships got to be complex, that they used to be layered, that they used to have motions that you go through that seem tropey, but they're only tropey because they work. They're supposed to happen. Like that's what makes these characters relatable. It isn't their invincibility, to Brandon Sanderson's immortal point. It's never the amazing thing that makes the character memorable. It's how you get into their head and how you go on the journey with them that makes them relatable. And so far, like all four of these people, all the four mains, the two goods and the two bads, like we've all experienced, I think, when you hit a certain point in your life, what each of those roles feels like: the student role, the teacher role, the guy that's been crapped on at a job and now he's trying to take his next best step. The parent that thinks he might have the parent or brother that maybe feels like he let somebody down. That'd be Ahsoka. You know what I mean? That there's all those roles that we all take. And I think we get into them when they're allowed to breathe and they flesh these characters out and let them have those moments where they express those doubts, those regrets. So, I mean, at least we've got that going for us through the first two episodes. So I think it's pretty solid. I got one more positive that I wanted to throw in there, but then I wanted to take a look at a couple of the negatives. Love to see Chopper back. Thought that shit was hilarious when Hera was talking to the droid at the end of episode 2 and they're trying to track the escaping ship. And he's just doing this thing. And of course, she speaks droid and she knows what he's saying. And they have the joke where it's like, no, I didn't move all your stuff around. Check under the spare battery. And he does, and it's there. I actually laughed. I can't remember the last time I laughed at a show that wasn't labeled a comedy, like something like Twisted Metal or some bullshit. Like I actually got a chuckle out of that. And I'm like, dude, fucking finally. This show at the very least is fun. And Kenobi wasn't fun. Boba Fett wasn't fun. When was Mandalorian season 3 fun? They just never are. This was for 2 episodes, and thank God it was overdue for that.
Yeah, it was a funny show. I could actually understand what he's saying. Like you could hear it under the undertone, the way he said things. Like, I was completely understanding what he was saying. So
I think you might have just hit your head too hard or something when you were unpacking at the undisclosed location. I'll have to go back and watch because I watched 4 seasons of Rebels. I didn't understand shit that droid said. Not a damn thing.
Last night, I completely understood what that droid was saying.
All right. I'll go back. I'll put the headphones on and listen instead of just having it through the TV. I'll take a good listen. Were there any other positives that you picked up that you just want to? Because I think the 2 episodes just wrap up. They're basically on their way to track down the bad guys that not only made it away with the star map, but from the Imperial Star yard that the Baroness owned before she got locked up. A ship takes off with a prototype hyperdrive that they bring to an undisclosed location of their own that they're installing on something big. Yeah. Because they say it's the last drive to be installed.
Yeah, so it has multiple hopper drives.
Yeah. It's a ship called the Eye of Sion, I wrote down.
Yeah, I believe so, and I believe that they needed it to get to another galaxy, to get to where
Okay.
Thrawn is. They need something
Okay.
this powerful to be able to push that far. Because remember, if you go into the fake science of hyperspace travel. You need hyperspace material to push
Yep.
through, but it also puts a tax on the drive. Like you've heard, like we have to like reconfigure the hyperdrive. We have
Yep.
to realign this, realign that. So you're gonna need a whole bunch of them in line to be able to push that far for that long.
And of course, as we know with the hyperdrives, if you're as good and talented as Ray, you can just bypass the compressor. Anyway, so what wanted to ask you about that part where the Baroness mentions the Eye of Sion. You've read Heir to the Empire more than I have. I'm pretty sure you've read that multiple times. Am I right?
No, I've
The
only read it
trilogy of books.
once.
Oh, see, I thought it must have been somebody else. I thought you had also read it multiple times because I didn't recognize that as a plot point to Heir of the Empire. So I went back and just briefly scanned Wikipedia about the plot points for all three books, and they didn't mention hyperdriving anywhere with that
Because
kind of shit.
in Heir to the Empire, it's fresher off of the New Republic's power gain, and he was hanging out in the Outer Rim, just beyond the Outer Rim, not in a whole nother galaxy. In the Heir to the
So
Empire,
I was wondering if it was something more time related, like if this show actually takes place before the novel series Heir to the Empire, because Thrawn is an active player from page one
yeah,
in Heir to the Empire. So I wonder if this is the story that gets us to the trilogy, and really the only thing they're borrowing from Heir to the Empire is Thrawn himself, and that
uh,
they won't do the Jedi clone, they won't do the Lost Fleet, and all that other stuff. They're not doing Mara Jade, I guarantee you that.
unless Mara Jade is the dark
Oh, dude,
saber.
that would be sick. Oh, that would be sick. He said it. He did that thing. Ladies and gentlemen, Kingsley does this once per show we review, where he literally just plucks from the ether some shit that I want to just be like, oh, snap. I'm like the meme where like all the black dudes like, oh shit. Like that's how I feel once an episode because Kingsley does this shit. I'm like, dude, that's it. Dude, that's why they didn't pull the damn helmet off because it's a chick with purple hair. 100%. Mark it down. I think you're dead ass right. You're probably no, dude, but no, maybe not. Because why would the hand of the Emperor be with him? I'd have to go back and think that through.
Well, with the
But dude,
Emperor,
I got all goosebumpy. I'm like, oh snap! All
when
right.
the Emperor died, they were left without a job as well.
Oh, true. Yeah. But she's with at the beginning of Heir to the Empire, somebody else that's like running guns and shit with another smuggler. But that could be later. You're right, dude. It
Yeah,
could be Mara Jade in a pre-Heir to the Empire
we
trilogy. Maybe this is the in between.
yeah, because we have to take what they wrote in the Heir to the Empire with a grain of salt because
Oh,
of it's not being canon. They're picking and
right.
choosing out of this. There could still be the Lost Dreadfleet Armada out there. Their Dreadnought
Right. See,
Armada out
I'm trying to
there.
figure out a way that we can integrate both of those ideas, right? With this series taking some elements from Heir to the Empire proper, I'm going to call it, and then, getting into that later as maybe they do. They should just do those three effing movies, figure it out. But barring that, I wonder how much we're going to get into that isn't just Thrawn himself.
So
I wonder if we get the Jedi clone, Corbus or whatever his name was, and like you said, the Lost Fleet, the Lando stuff I'd like to see.
So if you want to condense it, so Heir to the Empire, Thrawn only had his Super Star Destroyer in Heir to
Right.
the Empire when he started, and he was seeking out the planet where they were doing the cloning, so he could get
Right.
build his new Emperor, because that's when he
Right.
noticed that after the Emperor died, that his pilots weren't as sharp, his
Yep.
soldiers weren't shooting as straight. I mean, they were
Yep.
stormtroopers, of course they're not going to shoot straight.
They were shooting pretty straight at the beginning of New Hope, and then all of a sudden that became a meme.
Yeah.
Anyway, these blaster marks are too precise for sand people. Just saying, it's in canon, guys. They used to be able to shoot.
So if you can condense that, and
Yep.
you can have where they go to a new galaxy and find Thrawn, who already has his fleet of Star Destroyers
Yes.
with him. So boom,
Interesting.
you got that. You could have, and that's my take of why I think as they flipped Ezra, he's going to be their new emperor. He's going to be that clone version,
Oof. Sick.
completely
Sick and
changing. It's that whole knife, and then you could have the whole
Yeah, dude, it hurts.
redemption arc.
I said that. That's what I said earlier.
Sister saving the brother from the dark side, and then you can have Ahsoka, who also believes she failed Anakin for letting him fall to the dark side. So you can completely have this undone. That's why Anakin's going to show up to explain that he didn't.
Yep.
You didn't fail me, but don't fail this guy either.
Dude, I think the tears would absolutely break out if that happened. Like if we could get that redemptive moment where like an actually effective Anakin Skywalker teaches Ahsoka the lesson that he couldn't in life, that would be badass. That would be some shit. It wouldn't fix everything they've done wrong over the last 4 series, but at least I'd be like, okay, all right. I mean, kudos to this. You know, it's like when your sports teams have a bunch of shit seasons, but then they make a deep playoff run. They don't get it done. You know, maybe they get banged out in the Eastern Conference Finals or something. But at least you go, all right, I'll be there next year. I'll watch a couple more games. And so I'll buy a new jersey. You know, that's how I feel like that would be.
We talked about this with Andor. You had someone who cared about Andor, that time period that was carved out for him. This showrunner, this is his time period that is carved out for him, and this is what it looks like when you actually care. Now, I know he was part of Book of Boba. I don't know how deep he was in it, but he was part of it. But the Mandalorian, Ahsoka, this is more of his. And if he's going to be running with the movie that's supposed to be right here in the middle, you're supposed to have the past, the present, and the future movie.
That shit's never happening, but continue.
But if they do the middle part and he can fix this part, I would actually look forward to that middle part.
Like, oh yeah, dude, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
If it's coming off as good as these first 2 episodes are, and what this could actually be, I think the middle movie would be the best of all 3 of them if they did them.
I mean, I think it's likely that is speculating here completely, of course. I think out of all 3 of those movies, that's the only one they ever even sniff doing. There's zero chance they spend $300 million plus on a movie about the rise of the Force or the beginnings of the Jedi with no legacy characters, no visibility in terms of things people can connect legacy to. Not a chance. No way. And then the Rey thing, not a chance.
If they wanted
maybe a little bit more.
If they want to do a past one, they should do Knights of the Old Republic.
Dude, 1,000,000,000%. And that's one of the no-brainers where we talk about, listen, dude, Darth Revan has about a gazillion times more likability to that character, to that story, to the side of Bastila, to the HK droid, to everybody else in that game, right? Mm-hmm. There are people that love that time period and read those books because of that game. That would have been a no-brainer. Again, with an interesting character whose origins are unlike anything else they've committed to live action or animated since. The villain's the good guy? Shocking.
Yeah, I was sniffing around the YouTubes, and you get those polls in there every now and then with the new community tab, and one of them was like, what era would you want to live in? And it was like Knights of the Old Republic, Rebellion, New Republic, and then it had First Order Rebellion type thing. And
those guys suck.
By 76%, people voted for the Knights of the Old Republic timeline.
I'm telling you. It's infinitely more doable as a concept than anything original they think they can come up with that isn't an Ahsoka derivative. At the end of the day, this show is based on one guy's passion project that he's kept alive for like 2 decades. You know what I mean? Like he's worked his way up the ladder, keeping this in his back pocket, and then probably worked it into a pretty sweet contract that he would get near total creative control about this show. Which is probably why it doesn't suck. Because at the end of the day, I think Filoni probably likes Star Wars. You don't invent a character, co-create a character, or whatever with George Lucas, if you think everything he did sucks and want to pull the rug out from under it. Now, you might have slimeballed some stuff under corporate order in Kenobi and Boba Fett, but I'm pretty sure this dude would have walked and would have preferred to have burned the treatments for this show than let them subvert it into some garbage.
And he wasn't part of Kenobi. He was only associated with Book of Boba Fett.
Okay, all right. I think Favreau was definitely on Kenobi, but I think he had one foot out the door in terms of his interest level in getting that done once he saw what the mandates were going to be to that show. and how they at the last minute changed it from Kenobi looking out for Luke at long range and being anonymously involved in protecting him so Luke didn't know him up front, and not having Leia in it at all. That was some bullshit that came from the studio. That wasn't part of the original concept of that show. But let's rip it back over to Ahsoka real quick. Dude, any negatives you picked up from this show? Anything at all?
Other than the unusually sized bomb explosions inside the droids.
Yeah, I had that. Let me check that off my list. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. Gone. We talked saber wounds. That was more of a me thing. Anything else for you? I got a couple.
No, but I did like the thing with the saber where she was talking about like, oh, it's Ezra's saber, and he's like,
Yes.
You made modifications. This is yours
Yeah,
now.
yours. Good scene.
Yeah.
Good scene. And I liked how she took it. She took it with a degree of reverence, and not like stupid TLJ where she was like, even if she chose not to at that point, the tone of this show suggests she wouldn't have just taken it and flipped it over her shoulder like she didn't care. And that's all I wanted. That's all I ever wanted from the production, was that you just take it as seriously as the guy making it as I am with watching it and trying to enjoy and support it. That's all I ever wanted for that. But that was going to instantly recognizable as Ezra's second saber that he built for himself after his blaster saber, got destroyed. Super cool. I was digging that. As a side to that, I like the part where the droid's breaking down. I've scanned hundreds of these over the years. I've only ever seen this kind once and this and that. So I like that there's some, it's like a superficial cut, but it's like there's a little bit of lore going into the discussion of the sabers, which I thought was kind of cool. I did like that stuff.
And like how each saber is kind of unique to the person.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, I like that. A couple of nitpicks, just a couple, and they're definitely not major. One of them's probably a me only nitpick. I don't like contemporary sounding music in anything sci-fi. So when Sabine's on her speeder bike rolling out of town, even though it wasn't Metallica, it was still supposed to be a rock song that we can imagine she was listening to inside her helmet, or something like that. Something that they thought fit the pace of her blasting out of town when like the governor's looking for her.
Yeah.
I just there's something about that breaks immersion for me on a minor level. I would have just rather her just like staring off into the highway, into the unknown, and then you just hear the hum of the speeder bike just rolling, and then she kicks it up a gear, and then it just screams. You know what I mean? And then the Republic guys come in and try to chicken her into landing her ship, which I thought was cool. Again, they tried some shit, and she was like, "Nope, not gonna happen." But yeah, just as a nitpick, it was just the music cue there for me. I just don't like it. It feels out of place. It always brings me back into remembering I'm watching a show. But here's one I think you might appreciate in terms of nitpicks, being a guy that's worked behind the camera. I thought a couple of the sets looked off, that they had been done on a budget. In particular, there was a couple of opening shots where Ahsoka's she's on the temple planet. There's a bunch of like white rock looking pillars on her way into like where she was going when she cut her way down into the chamber.
Yeah.
I just thought they looked kind of crummy. They looked like styrofoam with some black paint on them. I thought, I could be wrong. It just looked a little odd. And then it wasn't the scene with the mural, because I thought that was okay. It wasn't Ezra's old apartment, because that was pretty good. It's slipping my mind now, but it was mainly just that initial temple shot. Oh, no, it wasn't even the shipyard. I thought the shipyard looked good too, because they had there was obviously some green screen work there with the giant ships being broken down and decommissioned.
Yeah, which you're going to have to do. You don't, because
you can't build a set for size. Those ships are massive, right? No, yeah, maybe it's just the temple scene. Like I said, minor nitpick guy. I thought everything else looked pretty good. The CGI when they used it for the aerial combat was pretty slapping, or when they needed to do special sets. I thought the stupid little cat pet creature thing looked a little phony, but dude, it's a cat with rabbit ears and chicken or duck feet. What are you gonna do? You're never gonna convince me that's real. It's just that is what it is. But I think that's all I got nitpick wise. Let me just check my question list. Yeah, we talked Heir to the Empire. There we go. Here's a good question here, right? We talked sequel retcon, never going to happen, so that's off my wish list. How much of this show's apparent goodwill, because I think it's doing pretty good number wise. The show has some critics on YouTube for it's an all female cast except for Baylan Skoll. I mean, maybe, but I mean, I won't complain about that because their legacy. And if it was a show that had mainly dudes, I would tell a female fan, dude, if their legacy and this is the story they're telling, deal with it. That's just how it is. So I won't complain about that. But how much do you think of this show's positive word of mouth right now is nostalgia as opposed to it actually being quality? If you think that's a fair question.
I don't think it's nostalgia. I think nostalgia does play a little bit into it, but it is quality too. And for the people who are complaining that's an all-female cast, at least they're strongly written female characters that are original, that are not just Luke Skywalker as a female, which wouldn't work at all. People talked about like they want inclusion and stuff like that. This is a type of show, and this is how you do it. This is how you do it right. So you get the people who are on the outside, like, oh, okay, I could get into a show that has an all-female cast if it's written this well. That's the problem with it, is that the ones that they do have, and the way they force it, it's not written well. You could tell that it was forced upon you. This one seems like it was genuinely written for them. For them to play these characters, and they're doing it to a outstanding ability that they have. You're seeing their acting skills come out with well-written material, and you don't even like I noticed that was a majority female cast besides say his name again. Balin. Yeah. Besides Balin, but I'm like, I honestly don't care because I'm enjoying the show.
Right. Because the story is interesting, and I think where the nostalgia pays off is I've already done the work of getting to know these three of those characters from Rebels. So when I get to see Sabine come back, I'm like, I already know who she is. Like, it's already built into me. I liked her on Rebels. Yes, she is a rebel. Yes, she's the wild card, the feisty one. I'm gonna do, I'm always gonna go back to my friends, but I don't really like taking orders. I know who Ahsoka is. She's a fucking tried and true, trope bound, borderline cliche warrior monk. I get it. You know what I mean? I like Hera. She's the action hero pilot of the group. That's also kind of like their mom, and they don't shy away from that. Like, they'd let her be feminine. That's the thing. Can she throw a punch? Yes. Can she shoot a blaster? Yes. That's never the thing she does first. You know what I'm saying? And it works. It effing works. So I'm not sure if it's nostalgia or if it's just like a logical, like I was saying, extension of what I've already come to know. So the trick, I think, is for these guys to write me the Baroness, Balin, and Shin in meaningful ways, because they're brand effing new. So if they had jumped right out the gate with Shin back talking her master and, being better than he is already, this show would smell like 10 pounds of hot dog shit in a 5-bag. But they didn't do that.
No,
she's completely deferential to him. She's completely the Padawan, or the apprentice if they're Sith or whatever. I think those are important points to kind of just run through.
Yeah, and I think this show could be really good. It could be like I said at the beginning of this, it could be the Star Wars shows we've all been waiting for.
Yeah, I think the only thing that gets in the way of this show not attaining that status are people that are just too committed to either liking it or disliking it for the wrong reasons. And I think you just hit the nail on the head with that. And I think the criticisms are these. I just made the two observations, like when I was doing show notes right before we started. If you're the kind of person that wants to see agenda and woke boogeymen everywhere, you're probably not going to like the show, because so far there is only one male. But you don't know if Ezra's coming back in episode 4 and he absolutely steals half the show and fights shoulder to shoulder with Sabine and Ahsoka. You don't know yet. So, I mean, you can't see it everywhere. Like, you have to just let these stories work themselves out and then make the judgment, unless something is so glaringly over the top that you can't stomach it. But I would challenge anybody to tell me that Ahsoka is woke to point out how. Why? What did you see that was woke? The existence of these characters isn't new.
Yeah.
So they can't be.
The one scene that they would probably go after is like, oh, it's the Weasley white guy who's still part of the Empire. It's like, but the majority of the people this was their shipyard. They were reusing this. We've seen this before in Mandalorian. You had people who were repurposed, droids repurposed for all sorts of different things. So it doesn't matter that the bad guy he was just a dude who's trying to survive in a post-Empire world who's still loyal to the Empire, and he had people from there who were loyal to the Empire. Yeah, I was like, that made
Yeah,
perfect sense. It wasn't to sit there and bash on men like men are all evil. It was
right.
no.
But that's the gymnastics that people will get to that point, to be like, no, no, of course it was that guy. And then I got to be like, now I got to reference fucking Kenobi or no, not Kenobi. What was the last one? Mando season 3, and be like, right, but the main bad guy in that one was a black dude, and his right hand was, I don't remember her ethnicity, but it was the chick that screwed over the Imperial doctor and
Yeah.
sent him to like the brain scrambling machine. Like, I don't know what her ethnicity was, so I'm not going to guess. And it's obviously not a white chick. So I mean, you just have to let all people of shapes, sizes, and colors be the good guys and the bad guys.
Yeah.
And only when you establish a pattern over time am I willing to jump back on the woke bus with the accusation. And we're only 2 episodes in. Relax. You know, to the point on that side. But the other point I wanted to make, because this goes for you other jackasses that prop things like crappy Kenobi and crappy Boba Fett up. Did you notice social media was glaringly absent of articles from Variety, from the Hollywood Reporter, from the Mary Sue, from Collider, from all these usual outlets, glaringly absent of articles warning Star Wars fans at large to beware of racist Star Wars fans and misogynist Star Wars fans that aren't going to like this because it's headed up by a female. I've seen none of those hit pieces. And I
No.
think you've already explained why, because Dave Filoni wrote this show and he fucking cares. So the quality is going to be evident whether I like the show or not, for story reasons, or or my own personal bias or agenda. Because somebody cares about this show, these assholes over at Lucasfilms didn't need their press dogs to run cover fire for them and put out preemptive hit pieces warning their cast of POCs. Because again, the main cast of the show, you have Rosario Dawson and the young lady who plays Sabine Wren. I can't remember her name. It's Natasha something or other. Clearly not white girls. And nobody was warning them about how evil the Star Wars fandom can be. And I wonder why that is. It couldn't possibly be because literal millions of people that look like we do, Kingsley and Winterwolf, have loved Ahsoka and Sabine Wren going back a decade. It couldn't possibly be because when you write characters effectively, people gravitate towards them and like them. And it couldn't possibly be because the garbage characters you crammed into those 3 shows that we've talked about throughout the Ahsoka show tonight were just bad. And it's not a reflection on the actors or actresses. It's not a reflection on anybody else criticizing them or not. It's maybe they just sucked. And that's it. And no other isms needed to be applied. Just saying. Just saying.
With that said, let's go into bold predictions for where we see
Here we
this
go.
going.
Read my mind, dude. Hit me.
All right, so bold predictions. I think it's going to go until October 3rd. No, I'm just kidding. That is exactly how
I know.
I'm
That's on
going.
Wikipedia. Oh, dude, even I know that, and I never know how many episodes or how long they run.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think
no, we got how much? We got 10. Is this a 10 spot? We got 10 pieces.
it's either 8 or 10.
Eight or 10. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I read 10, but don't quote me. But yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So
Give me the prediction.
I think I've hit on mine where I believe that it's going to be a full fleet that they're going to find with Thrawn. Thrawn's right hand man is going to be Ezra in some shape, form, or fashion, and it's going to come down to Sabine versus Ezra trying to bring him back,
Oh,
and it's going to be Thrawn versus Ahsoka. And it's gonna Ahsoka's gonna have to teach Sabine the Force, and Anakin's gonna teach her a lesson because we all know Anakin's coming back, and I think that's what it is to get her to stop running from her destiny. Is what she's done her whole life.
interesting. Interesting. Let me synthesize that for a quick second in my head because I want to make some alternate predictions to that. All of that, your predictions are always wild and would make for great fan fiction always. And I say that genuinely, not as a dig, as usual. Fan fiction gets dug at. I mean that. I think I would like to see a variation of that, but I don't think Ahsoka throws down with Thrawn because even though we saw him kick a little ass in the Rebels show, and we know he can fight, he's not defeating Ahsoka in a hand-to-hand combat situation. That's not happening. I think Ahsoka's end for this show is she either gets Balin to renounce his mercenary bullshit and take on Shin, who tries to make a power play like she was letting on that she wasn't as skilled as she might be, and maybe she kills the Baroness and tries to be Thrawn's right hand, or maybe something like that where either Ezra or Ahsoka has to defeat that combination of a-holes. I'm all over the place with the predictions, but I hope it's a variation of one of the bad guys counter flipping to good if your prediction of Ezra flipping to evil is correct, and then they both revert back to their true natures after each of their people intervenes on their behalf. You know what I mean? So if Ezra's bad, he's doing bad shit, Sabine or Ahsoka intervenes, and then he turns on Thrawn, and then conversely, if Shin, who looks like she's hesitating now, turns her back on Balin for whatever reason through their bond, because evil has its bonds too. You know, sometimes there's honor on the evil side of things. Exactly. Where at the last second, if it looks like Ahsoka's going to kill Balin, Shin renounces having turned good to go back to evil to save her father figure, and they escape for more show later, which I guess puts us in an interesting spot as far as that character goes. I mean, unfortunately, Ray Stevenson is no longer with us. R.I.P. Ray Stevenson, who plays Balin's Skull. Do you think they recast the character? I mean, this show was in the can before he died. They don't have to. If he dies on the show, that solves its problem. But I don't think he was planned to be in a. That's not how Disney shows work. Yeah. Like, I'm guessing they thought they had a recurring, character going forward that probably tested well in market, and they wanted to keep going so they could, get him in other things. So what do you think they do with him going forward? If he survives, do they recast or do they just write him off?
I think they'll just write him off. That'd be the more honorable thing to do.
Do you really think that's a Black Panther situation? Where the guy was only in the role for a year, for a season. I mean, they recast Spartacus. That worked out okay.
Yeah, but I mean, who could you get? Like, the guy who played Spartacus before and Spartacus after, they kind of looked alike.
They're built the same way for sure. Yeah.
It's going to be hard to match that unless you go with the guy from Game of Thrones, the one who carried his fingers around with him. No, the one who carried it.
Who the hell was that?
He was the hand to Jon Snow.
I have to go back and look at that.
He was also he was the hand for Stannis Baratheon.
Baratheon. I'll look up the image. I don't know. Yeah, dude, because you're right. I mean, Ray Stevenson's a big dude. He's like 6'3".
Yeah.
Built like a fucking refrigerator. So I mean, if they couldn't just pass in some rando dude, and then you need the gravitas on top of that. So I guess that's a fair point.
If they make the guy who played Hodor like stronger, he could do it as well.
Yeah, but he's all into like the DJ gig now, and he's like 60. He probably doesn't want to get in shape for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think we covered bases on this on Ahsoka through 2 episodes. What do you think? Do we hit everything? I'm looking down my checklist. I think we're looking strong.
I think we did.
I'm excited about the show being at 9:00 as opposed to being 3 a.m. So I could actually watch it, when it launches for a change, which would be nice. I'd love for us to be able to do that same day, but we got a time zone situation for right now, so we're not going to be able to make that stick, unfortunately. Tech issues aside, we keep up the same schedule for next week, and hopefully it works out a little bit better with the live streaming. Hopefully,
and for you watching, wondering what our schedule is, it will be Wednesday nights, 9:30. We're talking Ahsoka, and then we're coming back
9:30 Eastern.
Yeah, 9:30 Eastern, in the standard time, and then on Thursday we'll be coming back, giving you the news of the week in all things nerdum on the Winter Watch at 9:30 Eastern, as well as a live stream as well. Now, including the new plan stuff we're trying to get out as we did our schedules more synced. As you can see, once again, I am not in the home studio, but I should have more time on my hands starting next week, where we could actually start planning some of our newer content, as we are 1 week away from the official launch of horror season.
Yes. We'll have to hammer that down because we have a list worth of stuff that we can cover. And if you guys have suggestions for Halloween horror season for us to cover, if you want us to do franchises, if you want us to do first watches of your recommendations, I'm sure I could talk Kingsley into watching just about anything at least once, because God knows he's watched some garbage in the past. But we're going to get into that full swing. Kingsley, I'm willing to propose right now that I think the first big thing we work on if we do a piecemeal and have it ready for the end of the month, because we definitely going to do the horror draft. I'm looking forward to that idea. But we should definitely do some smaller, maybe villain reviews, a villain analysis kind of thing, like on a case study. Like maybe we break down some Freddy Krueger, some Jason Voorhees, just stuff like that. We'll change it up a little bit, do like a little bit more of a back and forth on those kind of characters. I think that could work.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, let's put that on our long ass list of Halloween stuff. But King Z, if you don't got anything else, you want to say goodbye to everybody? Because it's getting late. I'm hungry.
All right. I think it's time to say goodbye.
There you go. Y'all got a nickel's worth of King Z's angelic singing voice. Guys, we appreciate being here. Drop us a like and a subscribe. We love talking Ahsoka. Definitely, we're looking forward to more of the show. Comment below your highs and low points for the shows. Let us know if we missed something big. I think we covered it. But until tomorrow, because we are back tomorrow, 9:30 Eastern for Winter's Watch, we'll see you, King Z. Hit the end button for me, bro.